We're going to start this workshop with me and Amanda just telling you a bit about our experience of integrated services. Okay, so I mainly just used CAMS services, so there wasn't many points where other people were involved, but at the main point where someone else was involved, my experience was sat in a room watching a lengthy conversation over the phone between my CAMS worker and a college counsellor. They spent about 20 minutes arguing with each other, whilst I sat there in floods of tears. So they were having an argument over how much support CAMS could offer me. I think both of them thought that they were doing their jobs well. They were both trying to support me. They both wanted what was best for me. But to be honest with you, at that time when I was sat in that room hearing them shouting at each other, well, I could only hear one side of the conversation. I don't really know what was being said, but they were making things a lot worse for me. I then spoke to my CAMS worker over the phone, and she told me that I shouldn't be seeing a college counsellor because that would conflict the work that we were doing together. Well, that also didn't help, being told that I was doing the wrong thing when I was just desperately trying to get help from anyone that would give it to me. And the thing is, unfortunately, CAMS can't offer enough support for a lot of people, and other people do have to be involved. CAMS need to work together with the other people involved. They don't need to be less defensive and not say that they should be the only people involved in the person's care, because two people can work together. I know a lot of people have successfully worked with school and college counsellors whilst with their CAMS worker as well.
I've got experience about unintegrated services. So I was basically my own care coordinator. I was the person that was ringing up my psychiatrist, seeing if appointments was made, basically not being in the loop with what is happening. So I just think that for integrated services it should be working together and making sure that the young person is not the person that's in the middle of it all, especially when they're really ill. It's just another thing to battle against.
Okay, Amanda and another young sessional worker have created a video of their experience of integrated services that we'd like to show you.
Service integration means to me that there is co-working between different services, especially with counsellors and specialist teams. It means that there's a common language between them both and they're not working in their own interests and to meet their own goals, but to work in the interests of the young people.
Well, number one is definitely communication within teams, and then that also includes communication with the young person, so keeping them in the loop, knowing what's happening. And I also think it means working together with like core goals. You can still be doing separate things as long as it works to like a central goal of what the young person wants.
I don't think it means anything to young people as a whole. Like if he's asked general public what service integration means, they probably wouldn't know. But when you're experienced with mental health issues and you're forced into different settings and different people to see, then you realise that you need a holistic care package, and that means seeing different people, and you hope that that's joined up and not disjointed.
I suppose working well together, so that everyone involved like knows what's happening and knows what they should be doing. Yeah, making sure that the focus is always kept on the young person and what's right for them. Yeah, my CAMS and my school worked well together. Like my CAMS worker would come into school, and I'd have my session in school, and she would talk to my teacher, or we'd have like the three of us would sit down and we'd like discuss things and what would help me in school. So like instead of just like this is school and this is CAMS, they came together to benefit me as a whole, working in like both environments. Like being flexible, like CAMs coming into my school, rather than just saying, no, we can't do that, like, because I couldn't miss my lessons, I couldn't get to my appointments outside of school. So instead of just saying, well, we can't see you then, they said, well, we'll come to you. I suppose instead of it's taking that extra, I don't know, 50 minutes to travel, that made like all the difference to me, because it meant I was able to see someone like every week. It made me feel like they actually cared, like I was worth their time, like they wanted to help, because like they came together to help me rather than just working at like opposite ends.
I've experienced good service integration when my school and CAMS were working together. They helped me to keep on top of my schoolwork and helped me to get my GCSEs, which is really useful to me, and I wouldn't be here if I wouldn't have got my GCSEs, so it's a really positive thing.
Yeah, between social services and CAMS, each team, they were like brilliant, but they just did not work together at all, so that made me feel like the opposite kind of feelings, like I wasn't worth the time, like I shouldn't be involved with them, like if they can't get on, like what am I doing in service, that questions like that. Very visual, the tension between them, and that didn't make a very nice atmosphere for me. Like say if we had a meeting where they had to attend together, you could literally like feel the tension. So that was an example of them like working against each other rather than working together. And then like they would talk about each other and say, well, someone said this and they said that. Like I felt like I was taking sides. Like if I was talking to one of them, I felt the other one would get, I don't know, would be annoyed with me or something for talking, you know, like, you know, especially when I wasn't feeling great. So it just added to my feelings. Well, we didn't meet together very often, but I think that was probably half the issue because there wasn't a lot of communication there. I don't know if there was email or what, but I didn't know what they was telling each other, so I didn't know who I should be telling, who knew what, and who I should be telling. So that's why I think communication is very important, and keeping the young person like in the loop, I suppose, knowing who knows what. I think individually they did want what was best for me, but it's just that they didn't work together on that, so it didn't always happen.
I experienced poor integration when I was at a meeting, a staff meeting between different people in my care plan, like schools, counsellors, social workers, the inpatient eating disorder service I was in. They didn't really listen to what I was saying in the meeting, and then when I was asked to leave, they were still talking about me, so I didn't really feel like the service was working, different services were working in my best interest.
That's the bit I didn't like.
Yeah.
When they're like, oh, we're going to all sit in the room and carry on talking about you, but you're just going to wait outside.
Yeah.
And you can just see them like in the room, or you can hear them, or like, I don't know, just seeing them all, you know they're talking about you, but you're not there.
I think you feel marginalised by the people, like you feel like you're not competent in making decisions, or you're not well enough to comprehend what they're saying, but obviously you don't really want people to be talking about you.
If you work together, you always get so much more. So yeah, I don't know if that would have been meeting more or emailing more, or just, I think it's just general communication really. Even though they are two separate teams, they're still working with the same person.
I think that to centre it around the young person is imperative. I think that when a service involves the young person, they're more likely to engage with that young person and have their trust, and for them to have a set goal to work towards. I think when a service and counselling service is working efficiently and co-working together, then the young person should really know that a service is being integrated properly. as they'll talk to each other, they'll know that they've involved like the young person as well. So it shouldn't really be. It should be seamless, basically.
Definitely the teams coming together more often, like my school and CAMS did, involving me, so involving the young person throughout the process. Maybe with the young person making core goals that both teams can work towards with the young person.
I really like it when there's a meeting, like a smallish meeting, but with different people that are involved in your care plan. So for me, when I was transitioning between children's services and adult services, there was a meeting held at my school, so there was different people from different specialities, like school, and eating disorder service that just come out of inpatient, community adult mental health and CAMS. So there's different people working together for the same as me.
It would be useful if different services knew each other and knew how the other services work. So then, like, if the young person wanted to try a different service or wanted to explore different options, or even just when you're working together, if you know how each service works, it's going to help communication and help work towards helping the young person.
Yeah, like when I was in an eating disorder service, I was told about this place, and it was just like said, oh, you can go here, but didn't really like say, oh, we'll help you get involved in this. I had to go out of my way, really ill, trying to get referred to this service, when really it should have been them who referred me and helped me to get help in the community, not just being in a hospital and then just discharging.
Yeah, because that's not going to make you feel like you're cared about, or make you feel like you're valued, or like they want to help you. They're just like, oh, there's another service over there, off you go.
Yeah. I think I resorted to just looking and like Googling things and trying to get help, but it shouldn't really be down to the young person to find services and try and link themselves with different services to get the different helps that they need.
So maybe there needs to be more knowledge or awareness within services about other services. Even just simple, like how it works and how you get referred, or what help's available at different services. I think it would be a good idea if different services did like group training. I suppose that would help with like language and knowing what they're talking about, different processes and how they work.
There's not like a stress placed on the young person. It's more to do with from the initial start of training to be in a care setting that you work together with.
And that they know that that's what's expected.
Other people,
Rather than this is my team, this is only my team.
Yeah.
Think of it as like a wider
network of services.
When I left my service, this is relevant, but I got like a document describing it was kind of like a summary of my time in the service. And I think that's helpful to go to another service with. So it's like, in it said what worked best and what I responded to best and my background and stuff. I think that's useful, definitely, too, because then you've got that and you can decide if you want to show it to another service. It's normally about the young person, so involve the young person in every step of it.
I think service integration should be co-working with not just different services, but with the young person.
If you think of it like a jigsaw, you have all the pieces and they're all the different teams and people working with you, and if they're scattered about everywhere, you're never going to come together and make the jigsaw. You're never going to make the bigger picture. So I think coming together, like face to face, and talking about with the young person what they want, what would work, I think that's important.
Okay, so that's a young person's perspective. Now we want to get you involved. We want you to all work in groups. We want a professional perspective, like, it's easy to say they can just talk to each other, but we want to know, what do you find, or what do you think the barriers are to integrated services? Why don't services integrate? What are the issues with it? So if you could just, in your tables, have a discussion about that and write a few ideas down.
So, for instance, mental health and then social
We want to hear some feedback from every group, so can someone from the table just read out some of the ideas you've got? So we can start at this table. Someone to read out the ideas.
Do you want to maybe hold it, one person can maybe hold it up so that the other groups can see it while you're...
Well, we've got confidentiality, which everyone's got, and then we've also got often coordinating how you communicate with someone is tricky. So sometimes you can spend ages ringing people and trying to get hold of people, and then they ring back when you're not available, and it can take weeks to actually be able to speak to the person you want to speak to. We thought that there might be some people who feel that they're trying to protect their role and maybe feel that other services aren't able to offer that and want to sort of keep their specialism as a very specialist area. We talked about a lack of understanding of other services referral criteria, so there could be lots of delays and services change so quickly, what they're trying to achieve, and one minute there's a service doing something, the next minute there isn't. And then families not giving consent to share information, or maybe being very specific about who you can speak to and who they can't, which makes things tricky. Do you want to carry on, or? Yeah. Then every different service has a different computer system, so it's not like there's sort of one system that will maybe make it easier to sort of understand what each other are doing. Then things like workload, so if there's multi-agency meetings that we'd really like to go to, it might be you've got a whole day of appointments and you haven't been given enough notice and it's really difficult to physically get to it. And then things like accessibility, so the time services are open and where services are delivered. So if, as a CAM service, you were able to sort of get out to youth centres and schools to see young people, it would make all that communication easier. And then we also thought actually being able to joint work with other services so that you can address their specific needs. So for example, if a young person's got a mental health problem and uses Canvas, for example, if you're able to joint work with the drug service, then that would just mean it was really transparent and we all knew what you were doing.
Thank you. Can we hear from the back table?
First thing we thought about was the different languages that the service use, and then we went on to talk about all our statutory obligations, which are full of jargon and acronyms which nobody else in other organisations understands, so the two fitted in very well together. Locations of different services, if you work in a rural area, then the education provider might be some distance from the CAMS provider and some distance from the GP. And the internal pressures that, especially as CAMS services, we all know exist, but also exist in other agencies. We talked about the capacity to listen, so whether actually we hear the plights of other services who are struggling to manage cases on their own, and whether we should be working with them. And how our different services of commission links in with our internal hierarchies, in that on the ground there's probably good working relationships between CAMS workers and teachers and CAMS workers and primary care workers, but actually the higher up you go within organisations, those political machines start to maybe hinder and slow things down. Who's doing what? So going back to the reference you made about your college counsellor and CAMS not being able to work together, and why is that the case? and confidentiality about whether we get told everything that was told in the initial assessment, and people having to repeat themselves 2 or 3 times whenever they get introduced to a different system and a different worker. The conversation to break down boundaries, that was just about talking about what we can do.
That was more about, I think there's goodwill out there for people to break down. But I suppose that's just about working across the system and actually putting that effort to break down those barriers rather than being territorial, essentially.
Which counteracts what we called over-ownership,
Yes.
by people saying this is only something we can do. We can only, you can't do this, we can only do this. And sharing an assessment and trying to break down different definitions so that we're all using some similar language. And actually, if a really good assessment has been done by a primary care worker or an education worker, then can that translate into a CAM service?
Thank you. Taking the rest of the table.
Assist. Okay, so some of the things we've already highlighted. I'll just wait for Andy to stop. There we go. Very good. One of the things we thought was important was having a care coordinator, someone whose job it is to bring everything together around one person. Partly related to that is knowing what's available. So there are organisations of people out there who are really good at stuff, who spent a lot of time building expertise, and sometimes you just don't know that it's available to draw it in. Related to that information exchange and lack of accessibility of information, so leading to that duplication of having to repeat your story again and again, knowing who else is involved and being able to see it in a single place. We think that organisational stress and targets and pressures can lead you to get your head down and meet your own targets and deal with your own performance and cope with your own immediate concerns rather than looking at the whole. And related to that is the kind of standard of referrals, the standard of information that is exchanged related to workload and pressure. Different organisations having different rules and regulations or expectations about governance and what's shared. And some defensiveness as well about regarding a particular worker or a particular service as the expert or the specialist, which means people get precious and then it creates
that role protection.
Yeah, absolutely. It creates tension that you talked about earlier, which is perceptible to the young person and the family most often. And just kind of appreciating what everybody else has got to offer, really, which is a challenge sometimes and can lead to personalities then dominating or not getting heard. So I think anything else, people, before we have our representatives all right then? Thank you.
Thanks. Can we go to the table at the back?
We talked about the need for increased integration right at the top of the system. We talked a bit about the kind of task force and how it's kind of representing so many different bodies that are trying to work together, and how this kind of struggle to integrate everything as well in a climate of kind of continuing change. So all of those organisations are trying to get a sense of what their responsibilities are, and filters straight down all the way down into the actual service delivery. We talked about the kind of increased scrutiny on all of these services and how that can lead to blame, the kind of increased focus on outcomes, and how this can lead to kind of siloed working due to kind of secrecy and the kind of, I guess, also the sort of ownership that certain services feel. I guess there are kind of tensions between all of these things, so the need for increased evidence-based practice and a kind of more clearly defined purpose to particular work being done by certain organisations, and how this can cause conflicts and kind of siloed working, but how ultimately the voice of young people kind of cuts across this, so it's kind of universally understood by all of those people regardless of their particular specialisations. We talked about the need for greater leadership or clarity and leadership within organisations. And we talked about the kind of the shared struggles of all of these services within the current economic climate, which I think we kind of recognise leads to sort of challenges in terms of morale, which again, I mean, could lead to a shared recognition of the challenges that all of these services are are facing, but sometimes works in completely the opposite direction and just kind of compounds the kind of cultural differences.
Thanks. And finally, the men's table.
We talked about quite a lot of the same things,
Yeah,
obviously being the last table. You stole our thunder. The things that haven't quite come up is we talked about how anything mental health is now seen as something to do with the mental health service, in contrast to safeguarding, which now is accepted that is everybody's responsibility. That commissioning of the various parts, including other services knowing, developing their eligibility criteria, none of that is thought of as a whole system. So it's not commissioned as a whole system, and the eligibility is developed by individual agencies, so people fall between the gaps. And that was it really. And the rest of it about the language and everything else was similar.
Okay, some of you want to start to think about this, but now we want you to have a thinking discussion about how can we overcome these obstacles. There's clearly a lot of them. Yeah, what ideas do people have on how to overcome them and how we can change things? So we just all spend 5 minutes going back into your group.
Yeah, okay.
Take over
I'd
Whitehall.
just like to say what you said.
Okay, so to start feedback from this side this time. Your ideas won't all be stolen. Or we completely stole it.
Just going to use our slogan.
I'll just go from the top. We will think about the notes when we're thinking that, but that it's really important to have good quality meetings that are outcome focused and time to reflect. And it's very easy when you're busy to spend a lot of time in either for meetings to be cut out, and so you miss the good meetings, or you spend a lot of time in meetings that are just duplicating and not adding value. I thought sharing positive joint working examples with each other in a team and across services is good. Trust. Having joint training, delivering joint training, having a single point of access. In terms of commissioning and eligibility, to see everything from the young person's point of view, and that includes higher management, having young people and families involved at a much higher level in organisations, rather than at the moment, in most places we're at the infancy of having them involved within a service, but having them involved right up there, so that you have to talk a common shared language and you have to see it from their point of view. Yeah, I think that was the gist of it. Anything else? Oh yes, and but this was in response to the fact that we might hold, especially as CAMS might want to hold on to their cases, but working with others, perhaps offering supervision to somebody in another service that is working with a young person, that could be helpful too, and share good practice. I mean, on our table we had some services that were doing all this stuff really well.
Right.
So that was excellent.
Okay, thanks. Can we move on to the back?
Yeah, mental health needs to be everyone's business, so they need to be embedded in discussions at health and wellbeing boards. In public health authority, there needs to be parity with physical health. We need to embed this into early intervention services, in perinatal services, services for parents in schools. So we want integrated pathways, more shared working. We already have services, kind of partnerships and services on this table that have worked to kind of remove duplications. They're working really close together already. There needs to be more kind of strategic networking. See kind of partnership networking around specific challenges, co-locating. We need increased resources, driving networks that are stable but can achieve continuous quality improvement, and these networks need to be given permission and they need to be mandated, and we need to be able to recognise our achievements.
Great.
Can we do it either way on this time? The first thing we thought about was the description of the unintegrated services sounded like working for divorced parents, really, you know, who were arguing through you. So we thought we'd get some relationship guidance for the organisations in terms of how they work together. This word trust, I think, is an important one. A lot of our ideas came from the view that child protection is everybody's job, so everybody has to do training every 3 years to at least so they know what they're doing and what they're meant to do. But actually emotional well-being and mental health is everybody's job. So why isn't there mandatory training around that? And we felt if all children's services could get awareness raising in terms of what mental health is, how it works, what their role is, and understanding what their role is, and how much they can provide a first response, and then where they need to hand it over, and in terms of standard of referrals or who they hand it over to, those kind of things. We also talked about the information sharing, and we're still having a bit of a debate on the table about what can you share, what can you not share. And we were thinking about this idea of a CAMS passport and the young person having some control over the information and where it's held. And we talked also about Liverpool have got a multi-agency single point of access, and although they won't be the only one, that's a good start in terms of bringing people together so that there's one system. And the other thing is that despite the pressures in tiers 3, 4, whatever the Minister said today, we must invest in primary mental health and that wider support services. No?
Thank you.
Okay.
Go to that table.
Okay, I've lost my system this time because I asked. We talked about a lot of the other things that have already been mentioned. Multi-agency working, multi-tier multi-agency working, a joint referral form with joint consent, so that actually that they say about the passport, having good strategic partners, and our slogan of the day is meaningful participation to shift the balance of power.
Good. Okay, thank you. Have you got any ideas here? Haven't already been said?
Well, we talked about the single point of referral hub that we mentioned, allowing families to self-refer if they want to, and also having consultation with young people about where they want to be seen, and improving online resources and service websites so that the information is really straightforward and user-friendly in the first place, and then things like texting and stuff like that young people like. And then accessibility, so thinking about opening times and where young people can be seen so that there's less stigma. And then we also had a discussion about sort of basic training for professionals, so the idea that maybe in the first year of your basic training in whatever profession, you spend time all together, so social workers, nurses, OTs, all sort of learning the basics of sort of communication, whatever it would be, together, so that they start off in the very early stages realising that they're going to be working together. And then we talked about recruiting the right staff as well, and involving young people in the recruitment process.
Thanks. There's been some really good ideas, so we're going to take all these ideas back and write them down. We just wanted to tell you a bit about the Integrated Services Group that meets, is it every 2 months we meet? So a bit about the stuff we're doing. So for me, young person, me, Amanda and Leanne, the girl in the video, all attend this group regularly. So from that we're going to get more videos and more accounts. But we want, like, that video is longer, and that video speaks about what good integration would look like and what services could do better. We want those to be embedded into training for all different professions. And also, as was mentioned on the middle table, we're working together to develop a passport so that if integration hasn't occurred, young people can take control and someone will work, whatever clinician or person they're seeing will work on, there'll be a template, we'll work together to fill this in, so they've got a sheet or a couple of sheets of paper that outline their story, what they feel works for them, where they'd like to be seen, how they'd like to be seen, what they don't want their clinicians to do, what their main issues are, that the young person can have and take control of and literally hand over to whoever they're seeing. And then Mick will tell you a bit more about the other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, no, that's great. So the improving integrated services, a task and finish group for CYP IAPT that we started in February this year, and there's people in it, Andy and Anne and a number of other people here at the conference and have been involved in it. And the idea is to really look at how we can improve integration amongst services, and particularly to begin with, we're focusing particularly on two of the biggest mental health services from young people, which is specialist CAMHS and counselling, and we're looking to bring this phase of the work to fruition by April next year. So we've been doing lots of different things. We've been meeting every couple of months, as Anna was saying, and there's a number of really exciting projects like the young people are leading on developing videos and some materials like this video here that can highlight really the importance of integration. The passport, which is a great idea that came out of the young people about something that they can take forward and take to other services. We're also doing other things, like we're doing a systematic review of the research on integration and what's effective, whether it's helpful or not, how it's helpful, what are some of the barriers, kind of thing that you were looking at. We'll be developing a list of resources that we'll be able to circulate and that people can use, both evidence and people's viewpoints and training, for instance, in Minded on integrated services. And then the idea would be to bring that together into a set of guidance for different groups, particularly for commissioners and then also for practitioners, about how they can think about integration and how they can work towards services working more smoothly together so that it can meet much more the needs of the children and young people. And there's really a focus around integration. I think there's one of the groups was saying over here, is around integration, but always an integration around the child and young person. One of the things that came up very early on in the group is that integration doesn't really mean much if the young people are excluded from it. It's got to be young person-centred integration. So it's great to have this feedback, and all this will feed in, as Anna was saying, into the work that we're doing and pulling together different views on this so that we can try and improve things as much as possible. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so thanks very much for coming. Really nice to say thanks to Anna for organising this workshop, and for Amanda also for showing the video. I think it takes a lot of courage to both kind of show the videos and talking about personally about your experience, and also facilitating everything at the same time. So thanks.